Hello, everybody. Intuition here. Thank you, as always, for making time and space for us. Today, we want to talk about how to create your own spell. For all of you witches and goons and goblins and spiritualists and everything in between, you know you don't have to be into sorcery to create your own spell. In fact, many societies, institutions, systems use spells to keep many of us stuck in a rudimentary system that does not allow for our growth and continuation of evolution. So we might as well get hip to the jive of what a spell is, how to cast one, what the hell are they using to make a spell? Do I need to gather crap from outside and mush it into a bowl and then say abracadabra? Or is there an easier way, a more simpler way, a way that many institutions are using right under our noses that enable spells to be cast without you even knowing? Well, today, I'm going to share some of those little mystical knowings with you. But shh, make sure not to tell anybody. So, first, in order to know what a spell is, we must go into what a definition of a spell is, so that you know the history of what a spell is. In a spell, most spells, the spells that we are all familiar with, comes from that of the words in which we use. It is called the spelling alphabet for a reason. In fact, if you want to get even more crazy with it, the word spell, we all know it. In the word spelling, spell is part of the word of spelling, but ing is of Nordic vocab descent. We're not sure what the word is, but the ing always stands for God. Ing. So, the spell of God, spelling, that is what it means, but it is not the OG God that created spelling or words. It is one of the universal principalities that are a God within their own right, but know how to use spells and use spells all the time, which then therefore helps to create this illusion and distortion, which creates and helps to run the world in which we are living in right now. So we encourage you to look that up if that is something that is a new thing for you. The word spell, ing, the Nordic understanding, and what it is that they use for gods, ing. So, spelling, the spell of a god. So, spelling words usually are used to keep us all stuck. In many of my other videos, we've talked about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which again is just another fancy word for saying a spell that they're putting on you. They're programming you. So you want to call it a spell, you want to call it a program, whatever words you want to use, do not get lost in the words, then therefore you would be lost in the spell. And you would say, well, how? How are words getting me lost in a spell? Well, there's a hypnotic trance that words get you into, because if you focus too hard on the words, then you lose sight of the meaning of what it is that's actually being conveyed in the word itself, in the message itself. And then therefore, you are in a trance already, which makes you highly suggestible, which then therefore means that you are under a spell, you are under an illusion, which means that now, since you are vulnerable, so to speak, because you are too focused on the spell, the distraction, they can really implant what it is that they're meaning and wanting to share and say and express, and then therefore perhaps have you do. So words are the most used spell all the time, because many individuals know the power of words. Though there is no real inherent power of words, that is part of the spell itself. Words really have no meaning other than the definition that you put to it. But when two people are talking, then it gets all hairy and crazy. Because again, you have to try and decipher what one person is really trying to say with the words and the definitions that they're using, because they're not your definitions nor your words, so you get tied up in the words. And you're trying to understand what they're trying to say within the words, which creates a spell, which then therefore again puts you in such a closed feedback loop that you were just going around and around and around with yourself. Well, what does this mean? Well, what are they saying? Well, what did they try and say? Did they really mean this? Did they really mean that? And in you trying to decipher and understand what it is that is being said or not being said, what the connotation is, what the meaning behind the lines is, then you're already lost. Because now they have full control over what it is that they can really do to you or say and express within what it is that they're trying to communicate. So, it is important to know that we are using spells all the time. Whether you are cognizant of it or not, you are using spells all the time. And how you know if a spell is a spell is by understanding what it is that the person is really trying to say by the questions that they're asking. And usually, if they're asking you a question, that is, in part, sometimes part of a spell if they do not know exactly what they're asking to begin with. I'll give you an example. Somebody asks you, "What are your plans for today?" And you say, "Well, my plans are X, Y, and Z." And then they ask you another question. "Well, when are you going to be done with X, Y, and Z?" "Well, I don't know when I'm gonna be done with X, Y, and Z." "Well, why don't you know when you're gonna be done in X, Y, and Z?" What I'm getting at is, there's a question on top of a question on top of a question. If you keep on asking the same question over and over again, and it seems like it's a different question, but it is the same question because they're not really asking what they want to ask you. They're not really imparting what it is that they want to share with you because they're not really asking a question. If somebody is asking you, "Well, what are you going to do today? What are your plans?" Rarely is it because they're interested in what your plans are. It's more along the lines of, "I want to know if we could spend time together." Maybe. Maybe it's, "I need you to do something for me. And I need to know before I ask you if you could do something for me, if you have plans. So then therefore I could find a way to get you to still do what it is that I want you to do within the time frame and the structuring that you already have within your plans." That is all a spell. That is all a manipulation. Because again, if you were really genuine, you would simply be asking what it is that you're after in the first place, if you're even asking a question at all. Most of the questions aren't really questions, again. It is more of us just trying to make ourselves feel more important in the lives of another. Because we already have many of the answers that we're asking within ourselves. Many of the questions that we're asking, we already have the answers to. We do not need to ask somebody else to get an answer that then therefore we can subscribe to our life. We already have the answer. If you can ask the question, then you have the answer. How else could you ask a question without actually having the answer? That doesn't make any sense. Just like if you said to yourself, "Well, I'm confused." The fact that you can realize that you're confused means that you must not be confused anymore. When you're really confused, you're not even aware that you are confused. You are in such a fog, such a state. But if you could say, "Well, I'm confused," means that you're not really confused. If you could ask a question, then therefore you already have the answer. So all these questions, many of them in the very least that we ask to others, we already have the answer to. So then therefore we are using a spell, a manipulation tactic to get somebody to do what it is that we want them to do, or to feel more important in the lives of another, because we do not feel important within ourselves. So then therefore we must insert ourselves in somebody else's life so that we feel seen, because we are not taking the time to see ourselves. So we use spells all the time, every single one of us. Some of us are better at spells than others, but all of us use spells. And you don't have to go out in your garden and pick certain things and mush them up in a big bowl and then say abracadabra about. So if words are part of a spell, one of the biggest spells that there is, and if you could cast a good wordy spell, then you really could get anybody to do anything that you want. That is the most terrifying. Isn't that what a spell is all about? Getting somebody to do something, getting something to bend to your will. And words, the spelling, of the words, which then create sentences, which then create an algorithm, a program, for you to then therefore follow or get lost in the program, which then makes you more susceptible to whatever it is their agenda is. So how do you use spells to your advantage? How do you become more aware of the spells that people are using on you? You don't get lost in the words. You know the meaning that words have for you. And if you do have a question, then give yourself a moment to answer it yourself and not get lost in somebody else's insanity of the answer to the question and how they would answer it and not how you would answer it, which then causes confusion for you. Simply listen to what is being said, what it is that somebody is really trying to express. Because when you listen, you're able to, more times than not, hear the spell. But when you over-identify with the words, you get lost in the spell, and then you are bending in all different directions other than the direction that you're supposed to be bending in, which is your own will. So, how do you become your own spellcaster? You become your own spellcaster by A, knowing the other spells of others, which mainly come in that of questions or gratuitous words that have two meanings. Like, for instance, if somebody is speaking on the news and they say, some people are not agreeing with the changes that we're trying to make with X, Y, and Z. But here is why these changes will be beneficial for everyone. That is a very loaded, unneutral statement and comment. Many of the programmings that we are attuned to will be casting spells all the time because they're telling you what to think, and that is a spell. That is them bending you to their agenda, whatever that is. But if you were telling me what is beneficial, then you were telling me the idea of what good is. I know what good is. You don't have to tell me what good is. You don't have to set up this sentence and saying, let me tell you what good is. Good is these recommendations that we're about to make. No, that is not good. If you have to tell me that something is good, then it is not good. If you are using words to tell me you need to tell me that something is good, then you're already setting me up for a spell, an agenda, something to bend my own will. So I don't need to be set up. All I need to do is listen. I be my own spellcaster by listening to what other spells are going on so that I know what spell to make within myself. And the spell that I will make within myself is based off of my own words and my understanding and the definitions therein that I create for them. So then therefore, one of the best ones, these mantras, they do hold meaning because that is a spell that you are saying out loud. You must say it out loud. You can say it to yourself, but it holds more of a spell to it when you say it out loud, because then you could listen and hear it, because that is part of the entrancement of a spell. You have to hear it. So, then therefore, one spell that you could create to get you out of an illusion that somebody else is making is, no one else controls me. I am always in control of myself. I am my own universe. And in this moment, I'm opening up to a realm of my own possibilities that are for my understanding and knowing of myself. And so it is. And that immediately opens you up to your own realm of possibilities because you're spelling it out for yourself, hearing, listening to what it is that you just said, which then therefore actualizes it in more of an energetic way than hearing somebody else's spell, because then when you hear somebody else's spell, you're putting your energy into their thought form. And when you put your energy into their thought form, it creates more motion in their thought form, which then therefore enables that to come into fruition and actualization in the third density in which we exist. Enough people have to believe it to be so for it to be then therefore created. That is part of the spell. So you saying, I am in control of myself, I know myself, and therefore I'm making my own realm of possibilities based off of my own knowing, which I am in control of as I am my own universe. You are saying it here. You are hearing it here, which then is causing more energetic motion, a propellation of your energy being actualized in the realm of possibilities that always exists, so that that can be actualized in real time in our physicality, as opposed to you creating somebody else's agenda through the spell that they just enraptured you in. But what do we know? We're just the universal principality of intuition. And we know that you know far better than we could ever understand within yourselves. So, if this resonates with you, please, for your sake, start creating your own spells. Stop listening to other people's spells, because that is creating more of a propellation of their agenda to be actualized in real time so that it becomes a real thing here. You need to agree to it by listening to what's being said and putting your thoughts and energy into it for it to actually come into fruition. Otherwise, it is just as meaningless, just as weak as anything else. So stop listening to the crazy shit of others and start knowing what it is that is happening inside of yourself. And you do that by being your own spellcaster. You are already very adept at it. You use it each and every day. We all use words. This is not new to us. It's just, how are you using your words? Because inherently they are powerless when you're not using your knowing behind the words. So, we know you know exactly what to do with this. Please continue in that knowing as it guides you further into the evolution of who and what it is that you know yourself to be. As always, we're full of gratitude, joy, and excitement for you making time and space for us. And we wish you well wherever it is that you are ending up today.